already at over 16,000 lives, and he told some more yesterday when he was at this Davos thing. On a rarefied world stage in the Swiss Alps, 45 cited accomplishments on clean air that aren't even real, a level of economic progress he hasn't achieved, and a blue collar boom yet to be seen. His preening performance at the Davos Economic Conference was rife with lies. Black colleges, 45 and historically black colleges and universities. He says, I saved the historic black colleges, university. We saved them. They were going out, and we saved them. The fact is, that's a big lie. 45 signed a law in December restoring money that has lapsed for several months when Congress failed to reauthorize some $255 million in financing at the time. The money came back because Senate education leaders reached a compromise in a broader dispute that had entangled financing for black schools. Neither the lapse nor the restoration was directly tied in any way to the 45 blowing administration. The 45 administration generally has supported historically black colleges, as previous administrations have done, and it's true that such schools have faced financial struggles and some have closed. The 45 blowing administration has expanded access to federal support for black schools with religious affiliations, and in 2018, forgave federal loans given to several of them after hurricanes, but this segment of university education was not vanishing, and 45 is not the savior as he's making himself out to be. Blue collar boom. 45 basically lied and said that this is a blue collar boom since my election. The net worth of the bottom half of wage earners has increased by plus 47%, 3 times faster than the increase for the top one. The fact is that this is a lie and it's not a boom for blue-collar workers. They haven't done much better than everyone else, and some of their gains under 45 have faded in the past year as this shitty trade war hurt manufacturing, the mining and logging industry, for example, which includes oil and gas workers. They've lost about 21,000 jobs last year. Manufacturers have added just about 9,000 in the past 6 months, while the economy as a whole gained more than 1.1 million jobs during this period. The U.S. economy is just heavily oriented towards services. While factory jobs have grown, other jobs have grown faster, so manufacturing has slightly shrunk as a portion of the workforce since 45 started squatting in the White House. He's right that net worth among the bottom half has risen, but from a low base that no boom can be claimed. The Federal Reserve says the bottom half has just 1.6 of the nation's wealth. When 45 took office, that's down from 2.1 in 2016. Or 2006, sorry. 45, for the first time in decades, we are no longer simply concentrating wealth in the hands of a few. We are concentrated in creating the most inclusive economy to ever exist. The fact is that this isn't true. Wealth is overwhelmingly concentrated in the hands of a few. Of the richest 1%, 32 of them own the nation's wealth, about the same as early in 2017 when the squatter was inaugurated. The middle class share, defined by the Fed as those from the exact middle of the wealth distribution up to the top 10%, remains at 29. This is despite the slight gains of the bottom half. The percentage of Americans who own their own homes, a key source of wealth building, has improved modestly under 45, but remains below the level seen as recently as 2013. 45 has basically said we have the greatest economy we have ever had in the history of our country, and I'm in Europe today because we're bringing a lot of other companies into our country within thousands, into our country with thousands of jobs, millions of jobs in many cases. The fact is that's a lie. His persistent depiction of the U.S. economy as the greatest ever is a lie. As for jobs pouring into the country, investment by foreign companies has slumped under 45. According to a report by the Organization for International Investment, a Washington-based association that represents foreign business, foreign companies directly invested $260 billion into the U.S. economy in 2018, a decrease of nearly 220,000 from its record-breaking level in 2016 when Barack Obama was president then. On the broader picture, economic growth under 45 is not nearly the greatest. In the late 1990s, growth topped 4% for 4 straight years, a level it has not reached on the annual basis under 45. Growth reached 7.2% in 1984 under Reagan. The economy grew 3% in 2018, the same pace it reached in 2015 under Obama, and it hasn't hit historically high growth yet. The unemployment rate is at a 50-year low of 3.5, but the proportion of Americans without a job was higher in the late 1990s. Wages were rising at a faster pace back then, too. This much is true. The Obama 45 years have yielded the longest economic expansion in U.S. history, but it's not the greatest. The average 45 also said the average unemployment rate for my administration is the lowest for any U.S. squatter in record history. we started off with a reasonably high rate. The fact is that this is not 100% true, but that's partly because 45 started with the rate that, if anything, was reasonably low, not reasonably high. The unemployment rate was 4.7 when 45 started squatting in the White House. That's below the long-term U.S. average unemployment of 5.7 since the Labor Department began compiling records in 1948. 45's predecessor, Barack Obama, inherited a rate of 7.8, and it remained high for years, topping 8 for a record length of time, but gradually fell to the below average level that 45 inherited. Air and water. 45 says that he was proud to report the United States has among the cleanest air and drinking water on Earth, and we're going to keep it that way. And we just came out with a report that at this moment it's the cleanest it's been in the last 40 years. Fact is, no, it's not. Air quality has worsened under the 45 administration, and it's a stretch to say the U.S. is among the countries with the cleanest air. Dozens of nations have less smoggy air. In the U.S. and other countries, air is better than it was during the days of full-on coal power, leaded gasoline, and belching smokestacks. Before the advent of modern pollution regulation decades ago, but by multiple measures, air quality has deteriorated in the last few years. The Environmental Protection Agency declined to identify what new report 45 might be, but referring to the question to the White House, they did not answer, because they didn't really have an answer to give. 45 made the claim after he proposed this month the latest enforcement rollbacks for the Bedrock Environmental Acts, credited with beginning that cleanup of U.S. air and water half a century ago. As to water quality, one measure, Yale University's Global Environmental Performance Index, finds the U.S. tied with 9 other countries having the cleanest drinking water, but after decades of improvement, progress in the air quality has stalled. There were 15% more days with unhealthy air in America in 2017 and 18 than there were on average from 2013 to 2016. The 4 years when the U.S. had its fewest number of those days since at least 1980, according to an AP analysis of EPA data. A recent study by researchers at Carnegie Mellon University found that deadly air particle pollution increased almost damn near 6% in the United States between 2016 and 18 after declining by 24% from 2009 to 2016. The Obama administration set records for the fewest air-polluted days. 45's most recent proposals for rolling back environmental regulations include greatly cutting back on decades-old requirement that federal agencies consider whether a big construction project would hurt the environment before they approve it. He's also proposing to pull back restrictions on major sources of air and water pollution like coal-fired power plants and auto on trade. 45 last week said that alone, the United States concluded 2 extraordinary trade deals, the agreement with China and the United States, Mexico, and he claimed that they were the 2 biggest trade deals ever made. The fact is, no, it's not. There have been bigger trade deals made. For instance, 123 countries signed the Uruguay Round Agreement that liberalized trade and produced a world organization in 1994 when Bill Clinton was in office. The organization's initial membership accounted for more than 90% of global economic output. The Federal Reserve Bank of Boston found it, and that was before China joined this organization. Also bigger, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have joined North America with Pacific Rim countries in freer trade. 45 took the U.S. out of the deal after the deal was negotiated and before the U.S. ratified it. The European Union, with its liberalized trade regimen, was itself formed from a giant deal. The China deal leaves tariffs in place on about $360 billion in imports from China and pushes substantial remaining disputes ahead to a second phase of negotiation. 45's U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement is much larger, although it's an update of the long-standing North American Free Trade Agreement worked out by then-Presidents George W. Bush and Bill Clinton. Household income. Real median household income is higher income is at the highest level ever recorded. Fact is, no, it's not. But it would be misleading if it were true. Real median household income in 2018 matched the previous high of $63,200, first reached in 1999. That's according to adjusted figures that the Census Bureau released to account for changes in its survey over time. 45 is presumably referring to an unadjusted number that does not show the 2018 figure as the highest on record. Either way, what the data show is that income for the median household, the one at the exact middle of the income distribution, essentially stagnated for nearly 20 years. The census data also show the household income fell sharply after the Great Recession, then began rebounded in 2015, right before 45 started squatting in the White House. So basically, his little thing here was all lies yesterday, as it always is.